Hi, Charles Sizemore, Chief Investment Strategist of the Freeport Society, and today we're going Darwinian. We're talking natural selection. Do you remember Blockbuster Video? I remember many a trip getting in my car as a teenager for movie night, driving to Blockbuster, fighting with the rest of the crowds, trying to get that new release. Good luck because they only had a limited number in the store. But if I got lucky, I got my video and had my movie night. What about Kodak? Do you remember film? It seems like eons ago, but you would take pictures, you would have to go to the photo lab and get them developed. That seems like something from a movie at this point. BlackBerry, you remember that one as well? Yeah. What do all these companies have in common? They all failed to adapt to rapid technological change, and now they are all firmly in the dustbin of history. Well, great. We have another potentially extinction level event coming in artificial general intelligence. Now, most people know what artificial intelligence is by now. You've played with ChatGPT or you've at least heard of it. Artificial general intelligence is a whole nother animal. And to help me unpack that, make sense of this madness, I brought on the visionary himself, Mr. Eric Fry. Eric, welcome.
Hi, Charles. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Now, you are no Johnny-come-lately to artificial intelligence. You were very early to this trade. You were in it really 6 months to a year before anybody else I knew was talking about it. You've made your readers a lot of money in this. But let's go basic. Let's just start with the fundamental question: what is artificial general intelligence?
Well, it's the next iteration of AI, of artificial intelligence. And to use a very simple sort of metaphor and illustration, it would be like, most of us of a certain age, your age, my age, some people younger, remember pocket calculators. You use them for school exams or just at your house or whatever. And if you have a little pocket calculator, you're punching in numbers to get a result, right? So AGI would be akin to walking into, if you still had one of those things, walking in and just watching it make calculations on its own with no human input. It's deciding what equations it needs to solve. It's deciding what answers it wants to find without any prompting from a human. So that's a super simple illustration, but the idea is that it's when artificial intelligence gets to the point where it exceeds human intelligence, it develops its own version of free will. So where you would have like an AI choosing to train some other AI completely away from any human involvement. And then how, broadly and crazily that spirals is really anyone's guess. But that's the general idea. It's when right now, AI, as wonderful as it is in its various iterations, still requires a human prompt, a human question, if you will. AGI would not.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting to me, because I use AI all the time just to augment my productivity, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't replace me. It just makes me a little more productive, right? And that's how really everyone is today. They might use ChatGPT. They may use Meta's Llama AI, Grok. Pick one. They're all really good. All the main competitors out there are excellent, but none of them actually replace a human worker yet. They make your existing workers more productive, and I guess at the margin you might go with 4 workers instead of 5, but you're not talking about massive disruption yet. You get to AGI. You're really talking about replacing a human worker. You're talking about having an assistant with, Einstein's IQ that's working independently, potentially 24 hours a day, never taking a bathroom break, let alone going on vacation or maternity leave or anything else. Not even so much as taking a coffee break. That is really a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, so. In terms of the impact of AGI on the workforce, let's say, or on corporate productivity, business development, I don't think we need to draw a huge distinction between AI and AGI, even though there's a huge distinction. AI is already, if you will, replacing jobs. that you just mentioned. If it makes a certain workforce more efficient, that means you're going to need fewer humans to do the same work. That's already happening, and it's already happening in pretty significant size. So then if AGI comes along, that potentially creates a hockey stick, an exponential curve in the capabilities of AI, which potentially then creates the wrong kind of hockey stick for unemployment, for employment like this. So I think that type of move is inevitable. The question is over what span of time. And again, from an investment standpoint, I don't think we need to make a huge distinction between those two things. But I would say this. So I recently wrote about the tractor as an example of AI technology, like a precursor. So the first widely used tractor came out in 1917. It was by the Ford company called the Fordson. It was an immediate hit and displaced a gigantic number of farm workers over time. So it wasn't just the Fordson, it was also the motorized thresher combine and other mechanical farm equipment that over time.
Eric, but beyond that, think about the second order effects too. Not only did it replace the manual laborers in the field, it also replaced the animals they were using, mules, horses, all of that. And then beyond that, it replaced the workers that would have been working on the horses, the veterinarians, the people putting horseshoes on them. Like there's second and third and fourth order effects of labor that was disrupted from that.
That is absolutely correct. I have a direct experience with, well, not direct, but my great grandfather worked on a farm in Illinois. And when these machines came along, had no choice, couldn't get work, had a choice but to go up to Montana and become a cowboy, right? He was on the husbandry side of the farm business, as you mentioned, and then lost his employment. So what I was going to get at is that in the early 1800s, it took 300 man hours to raise a bushel of wheat. That drops to 50 man hours in the 1920s, and today we're at 3 man hours, right? Yeah. So if you go from 300 to 50, that's kind of like AI, right? But if you go from 50 to 3, that's sort of AGI, right?
Yeah.
So you see, and if you look at it over a span of 200 years, you're going from 300 to 3. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's game changing, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, when does this happen? Because you hear, some tech visionaries are often known to exaggerate, but then sometimes they actually come in ahead of schedule. I know Elon Musk and Sam Altman have both said I think Sam Altman was a little bit more, he wasn't pinning a date on it, but he said it was coming really soon, whereas Musk thinks it's happening this year. What whispers do you hear? What do you think?
Well, all I can tell you is just to repeat what the true experts in the field have been saying. If you go back even 5 years, most of the leading AI experts in the U.S. and globally were expected AGI, at least the first versions of it, to arrive about 50 years out. And then with each year, it dropped from 50 to 30 to 20 to 10 to now, as you say, the leading voices in this area believe this is a this year or the next 2 or 3 year thing. It's now. And what that means is that all of the leading AI companies are attempting to develop their own version of AGI, just like they all attempted to develop their own version of generative AI with ChatGPT and Claude and all these different versions all the different companies have, whether it's Oracle or Amazon or Meta or whatever. So the same folks are trying to win this AGI race.
It's. I think about all the ways that this could be used. I think about how I could use it personally, and my eyes start bugging out of my head. Yeah, I think about the greatest trade I ever made in my career was really a lucky accident. I happened to be sitting in front of my computer when we had a flash crash. And what happened? The prices of several ETFs dropped from whatever they were trading at, $10, $20 a share to just pennies. There was just no market for them. The market failed for a brief window of time. I happened to be in front of my computer and I just started buying I was afraid to place too big of orders in an illiquid market, but I was placing 100 shares, go, 100 shares, go, 100 shares, go. I minted money, and I only was able to do that because I happened to be sitting at my desk at that time. Now, imagine you build an AGI bot that is, you've given it general instructions to monitor, look for flash crashes, look for market dislocations. Tell it to place trades when it sees some extraordinary event like that and use its discretion. So imagine, you could be, playing golf or something. You could be taking a nap. It could be the middle of the night, and this is happening in Tokyo for all you know. And you just made, a life-changing trade. I think about the potential there. We're in the business of absorbing information, distilling it into something usable, and then sharing it with our readers. That is an extraordinarily time-consuming and difficult task. Imagine you have an AGI agent scouring all available information as it comes in real time. Knowing you, it distills it into something it thinks you might find useful and actionable, and then essentially gives you bullet points. Oh my gosh! I mean, what would have taken you hours, days,
right.
Maybe weeks? It's
so
seconds now, minutes.
Yeah, absolutely true. The use cases, of course, would be infinite, right? The flip side, the sort of scary side, is that it's really it's a sort of Frankenstein moment. Frankenstein's not the monster. The monster is the monster. Frankenstein's the doctor. So Dr. Frankenstein tries to make this benign monster, but the monster's not benign. So you try to build an AI that screens the stocks you want to screen, and maybe this AI says, "Oh, I got my own idea. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to create a better system, and I'm going to not only do that, but when the trades succeed, I'm going to wire the money to an account in Singapore." I mean, you don't know what this AI is going to do. It makes its own decisions. That's the thing about AGI, is that it becomes human-like.
You like to think you could build basic rules around it, like guardrails, but then if it really was acting on its own, it could just eliminate the guardrails, right? So that's going to be
in theory. Well, it absolutely will happen in some respects. I mean, if you have a technology that is A, more intelligent than the most intelligent human, and B, has the capacity physically to develop beyond what it has already. One particular scary use case for the crypto world is that a lot of people believe that AGI is one of the technologies that could break crypto codes, right?
Sure.
At least it would participate in that process. So that's a plausible, real threat, right?
AGI powered by a quantum computer could break all known encryption.
Right. Exactly correct. And maybe AGI accelerates the development of super effective quantum computing. I mean, the two things could work together, potentially. Yeah. But that's the story of AGI and AI. That's the world we're in. It is, as you said at the outset, this is a Darwinian process. And the companies that, just narrowing it down to the investment world, the companies that identify both the opportunity and the risk most quickly and are able to integrate the new technologies most quickly and most effectively are the survivors, and those that don't won't.
Yeah, they become the next blockbuster. So that does bring me to the next question I wanted to ask you. How do we invest in this? I know from your past writings, you sort of broken it down into buckets to look for. So why don't you walk us through some of those?
Well, the first bucket is a bucket I mostly completely ignore, and that is investing directly in the new technologies. that facilitate AGI or AI. You can make a lot of money there, but very easy to be wrong. And the world is changing so at lightning speed. So I consider it personally too easy to make a mistake there. So I pretty much ignore almost all the direct technology investments in AGI. Instead, been looking at the appliers, companies that apply AI and will apply AGI in some fashion, who are applying it to today to actual commercial advantage, not applying it as a sort of side hobby, but actually implementing AI in some way to make themselves more prosperous. So that's one huge category of investment. Another is investing alongside AI or alongside AGI. That's basically investing in companies that facilitate, usually in a physical way. They facilitate infrastructure, with land, equipment, components, cooling, you name it. Things for data centers, things that will facilitate some facet of AI. And the final category are what I call future-proof companies. So the companies that, like, no matter what, even if AGI bots end up running the entire planet, you're still going to need some of these things. So agriculture, to the extent there's still humans around that are eating something, you're going to need agriculture. You're going to need transportation for a very long while. Again, this is as long as there's humans around. You're going to need travel companies. You're going to need companies that
until quantum teleportation is possible,
right.
and until Beam Me Up Scotty becomes a real thing, you're still going to need transportation.
Yes. So I look in those fields, areas that I consider to be future-proof, where they're not going away anytime soon, if they ever do.
Eric, it's funny. I had this concept that popped into my head. The farmer's revenge, right? It seems like the trend of the last 100 years has been away from the countryside into the cities. The farmer was forgotten about. Nobody cared about that entire industry. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, in a world where everything is in flux, all modern industries are at risk of Darwinian natural selection here. Suddenly, the oldest and most boring industries, like agriculture, the most basic, the most finite, there's a limited amount of viable farmland. All of a sudden, that starts looking good.
Yeah, well, there's for a variety of reasons there. There was this whole locavore movement, call it 10 years ago, where people were eating locally, right? Locavore. Yeah. And that's the farm to table concept, blah, blah, blah. Now, a lot of that was just, we'll call it, granola head, love the earth type of thing. But it becomes, in an extreme case, or even in a non-extreme case, it becomes not essentially an economic imperative, but it becomes something to think about. Like, how close do you? We're kind of getting out there now, but how close do you want to be to your food? How close do you want to be to your water? How much control do you want to have over different components of your lifestyle in a world where AI is dominant?
Or potentially you're going to have a robot master controlling you. Right.
And the only way to get away from it is to live in your 1970s VW bus somewhere and grow your own vegetables.
The hippie's revenge. I love it.
Right. Exactly.
So, okay, I know that you recorded a presentation on this on Thursday.
Right.
We're going to put a link to that so that anybody that wants to know more about AGI, how to invest in it, all of that, they can follow that link. Any last investment tips before we go?
No, not really. I think like some of the things that are the direct ideas that we're investing in are like companies that are using AI to sort recycling materials. Another one using AI to optimize rolling stock, how trains move across tracks. There's a lot of different categories of AI applier that I think there's just not on the forefront of people's minds. But if you take an old
most
school
people think
industry,
AI, they immediately think, a chat bot that's going to write a legal
Right.
brief for them or something. They're not thinking old economy. And that's where the opportunity lies.
that's where they may not be, the next 100,000% gainer stock, but they can be the next 1,000% gainer stock, and they can do so pretty securely because you're talking about, in some cases, an established company that has taken that next step and has figured out a way to apply AI in ways that dramatically boost efficiency and therefore expand profit margins on the same basic business line. So those are fascinating companies.
Yeah, those are the companies using that to stay one step ahead of evolution. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thanks for joining me today. Again, we're going to put a link to your presentation below the video. Thanks. I hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate it.
Yep. And to everybody watching, this is Charles Sizemore signing off.